What that does is that brings us into the consciousness of the presence of God. If we continue to do that many times each day, saying, "Thy will, not mine, be done," many times each day, we're bringing ourselves into the consciousness of the presence of God. And this book tells us that that's quite possibly the most important aspect of a recovery, is being in the state where you are conscious of the power, you're conscious of the divine.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you're all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. That was the voice of our old friend, Mr. Chris S., that you heard at the beginning of this episode. And you are going to hear so much more from Chris in just a moment. But first things first, this here episode is made possible by Gary, Philip, Audrey, Mary Lynn, and Laura. And so you ask yourself, what exactly did Gary, Philip, Audrey, Mary Lynn, and Laura do? Well, they swung by our humble little website, I must say. It's kept up by the lovely Mrs. M. They went to our website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little donation tab at the top of the screen, and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Gary, Philip, Audrey, Mary Lynn, and Laura. This here episode is coming right out to you'ns. All right, so what am I up to right now? Just so you know, I'm about to go. First of all, my voice is going to have a little bit of a challenge getting through both the intro here and the listener feedback that I'm about to do in just a second. But after I get done recording those two things, I am going to my son's birthday is in a couple days, but we're going to go out and have a little birthday dinner with him tonight, me and the lovely Mrs. M, and I'm looking very, very forward to that. All right, let's just get right on into the featured guest of the week, and this is Mr. Chris S. One more time from Blairstown, New Jersey, and he is going to be discussing Step 11 in Alcoholics Anonymous. Chris discusses perspective, consciousness, self-centered fear, how Step 10 and 11 coexist with each other. Packing into the stream of life and what that means. What could we have done different? The line from the big book where it asks that. Contemplative meditation, the Oxford group, Thy Will Be Done, and much, much more. I know you're going to enjoy this. Enjoy Chris with Step 11, and we will have plenty listener feedback at the end of the episode. Enjoy. Back, kind of swimming our ways through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you will, with Mr. Chris S. So, Chris, I'm going to have you to begin with here. Go ahead, introduce yourself, give your sobriety date if you wish, and tell people where you live in this great land of ours, por favor.
Absolutely, John. My sobriety date is on or around December 28th, 1989. I live in a town called Blairstown, New Jersey. It's up by the Delaware Water Gap.
And I know we've been through this on probably a couple of your episodes, but we're always picking up new listeners. Can you tell people when you say on or about December 28th, 1989, what you're talking about?
So I was in the DTs. So, so, days
Is
were
that a
days
vacation
were kind of
spot? The
swirling
DT?
around. It was a mess. So I claimed December 28th. I believe that's probably accurate.
Yeah, and I had to go back and look at some credit card receipts to kind of figure out what my at some bar I was at to figure out what I drank last. I completely understand. It wasn't until several months later I kind of started saying, you know what, I think this is my date. I'm not sure. So anyway, all right. So last time you and by the way, just in case this is your first exposure to sober speak here, we have had several episodes with Chris. In fact, I'm looking at them right now. All the way back, we started in, I don't know. Oh gosh, it's been a while. So, but all you have to do is search up on your little podcast player, or you can go to my website, soberspeak.com, click on podcast, and you can search for the various episodes. But we've done pretty much every step here with Chris thus far, and we've also done some side topics, if you will, like the 12 inconveniences of AA and contempt prior to investigation, all those sorts of things. All right. So, but today, since we left off last time with step 10, we are going to get into step 11 this time. So, step 11. Oh gosh, why do I do this off the top of my head? 10, continue to take personal inventory when we're properly. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. And we did a little prayer right before we started, right?
Mhm.
And but what are your first thoughts, Chris, when I mentioned that step 11 of Alcoholics Anonymous?
So step 11, as I see step 11 is about perspective. So I come from active alcoholism. I sober up. Now, just being a dry alcoholic, just being somebody that's separated from alcohol, there's so much stuff going on, in my head and in my life. There has to be some kind of calming influence, some kind of perspective that needs to impact me so that I can change and settle down. You know, being filled with the consciousness of the consciousness of my self consciousness all the time was the way I would live when I would get sober. And that was not a good place to be. There's a reason we relapse all the time. There's a reason that we drink when it's not the smartest thing in the world to do. And I believe it has a lot to do with our consciousness and our emotional continuity, for want of a better term. So how I see step 11 is a very centering set of exercises that are designed to undisturb us. Does that make any sense
Yeah,
at all?
yeah, yeah. So, okay, we'll dive into that a little further. So, like to help center us, to help us maybe get out of ourselves, to help us look at things from a different angle. I like that word that you used to begin with perspective, right?
Hmm. Right. So I'm prey to a lot of emotional turbulence in an unrecovered state. They identify some of them in step 4, resentment, self-centered fear, the selfishness and the self-centeredness that causes damage in our relationships. I'm programmed for all of that as an alcoholic. And that type of experience is not conducive to like long-term sobriety. You need recovery from a lot of that. So, if you want, what I'll do is I'll jump into some of what the big book, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, talks about step 11. And I'll try to, we will try to share some of our personal experience with some of these practices and explain why they're so important. If you want to remain sober, if you want to achieve what's known as a state called recovered, it's going to be essential that there are some spiritual practices that are going to have to be implemented in your life. There just are. And what Bill talks about in the book Alcoholics Anonymous for step 11 is a wonderful starting point. I mean, it's got everything that we really need to stay centered in a day in this particular step.
Yeah. And just so people know, it's pages 86, 87 is basically step 10, and then it's 88 and 89, which is going to be step 11. And they kind of bleed over into each other, wouldn't you say, in some form or fashion?
Right. So step 10 is about continuance. It's about all of the previous steps and some of the ones that they haven't even talked about. It's about living them as a way of life. So when you get angry, you continue to take inventory. When you've hurt somebody, you continue to make amends. And you do this in real time as a working piece of your life. You develop it as a discipline. The thing about step 11 is more internal. Step 10 is whatever's hitting you in the middle of the day. Step 11 is more internal. What are the spiritual practices that are going to be really beneficial to me? But yes, they do coexist together. A lot of people talk about you go through the first 9 steps and then you live in 10, 11, and 12. And, to a degree, I completely agree with that. I must live in step 10, 11, and 12 if I want to remain, recovered and keep alcohol out of my body.
Right. I like how you say that they coexist together. That's a great way to put it. I've sent out information before on, something I called step 10 or step 11. And, people will shoot back and talk about how, you really don't, that is not accurate. This one's step 10 or that one's step 11. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, they do, but that's a good way to put it, right? They coexist together. I love that.
Ultimately, you want to get to a place where you're not numbering this. It's a way of life. You know what I
Okay.
mean? We resigned from the
Yeah.
debating society. Hopefully, if we're paying attention. So the way I see step 11, it's broken down into basically 3 parts. Upon awakening, as we move through the day, and when we retire at night. So where do you practice step 11? From when you wake up until you go to bed. Right. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to do. So we need to take this stuff seriously. Now, again, do any of us do this perfectly? No. Do all of us miss pieces of this, forget to apply it? So, sometimes even make a decision not to practice these things. Yes, we all do. And there's a lot of latitude, but I believe what we need to do is we need to practice until it becomes a discipline. And I'll tell you today, I don't get out of bed before I do upon awakening. and I don't go to sleep until I've done my retiring at night. It's when I'm moving through the day that I have to continually remind myself that these are the spiritual principles that need to be applied in my life. I am not like normal people. I have seen that my alcoholism sets me apart from a non-alcoholic, and there's some skill sets I need to be applying to be able to do well in this world. And these are some of them. Now, so on page 86, he starts talking about when we retire at night. And I'll just read some of this. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Again, so many people see these as uncomfortably religious. All right. Now I did for a long time because I had a lot of prejudice about, this, that, or the other thing. I came into this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous with all kinds of old ideas. In this first sentence, he explains what this whole thing is. It's constructive. It's going to improve your life. That's the point. We've heard people say, an unexamined life isn't worth living. You've probably heard that. I think it was Moe from the Three Stooges that first said that, right? But it's become, something that everyone talks about, and to a degree, it's true. This is about self-reflection. Let's stop and let's really see what's going on. Pause when agitated or doubtful. you know, uh, Ask for the right thought or direction. But it says this. It says we ask, were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Now this is about the 30th time he's asked this question, and it's all about this. Now think about this. Step one, we realize our alcoholism and our character defects are bigger than us. And step two, we come to believe that there's a way out, that there's some kind of power. I can't define it, but there's some kind of power that all these alcoholics must have. They're all sober in these rooms. And in step three, we make a decision. We make a decision to seek this power. And in step three, we see that our selfishness and our self-centeredness are really the root of our trouble. In step four, we in the resentment inventory, we look for were we selfish, were we afraid, were we dishonest, were we resentful. In step five, we share that with a sponsor. In step six, we become willing to have God remove what? Remove our resentment, our selfishness, our dishonesty, and our fear. And in step seven, we ask God humbly, please take these things. And then in step eight, we put a list of people and institutions that these defects of character have harmed. And we go out and we make amends in step nine for where we were afraid, dishonest, selfish, or resentful. And then step 10, we learn to 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 visualize these things. And in step 11, it's asking us to also be aware of these. And we need to ask ourselves when we retire at night, where were we? Not were we, really, where were we? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves that we should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? These are questions we really should be asking ourselves when we retire at
I
night.
want to say
The
there.
kind and loving to all is usually my tripping point. I
Well,
don't know
I was
about
going to
you, John.
say that's usually where I start because was I kind and loving toward all, and what could I have done better? Just because it covers a lot of that other stuff, and
Yeah.
you can kind of back into that. But I get it. It is hard to be kind and loving to all day long.
And again, we claim spiritual progress. We don't claim spiritual perfection. And I've got to change so many of my old ideas. My old idea was black and white. Either I can do it or I can't do it. This is about practicing these stuff, and a lot of times we're not very good at it when we start doing it, and that's completely okay as long as we keep going. What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? John, so much of my day now is about other people more than it's about me. Now, let's say in the 1980s, the late 80s, when I was drinking, I would come to, I would stagger up, I'd throw some water on my face, I'd go out to my terrible car, I'd go off to my terrible job. I couldn't wait until, 4:30. I'd head right to the liquor store the minute I got off of work, and I'd get home and I'd push everybody out of the way, and I'd start drinking, right? And that was my life. I wasn't available for anything. That is the most selfish way anyone can live, because you've taken yourself off the playing field. Why this is constructive is because this way of life has made me available to be where I need to be, doing what I need to be doing, and extremely helpful to enormous amounts of areas and people. I've got so much time now to be helpful. And it's because of these practices. There's been 10 million self-help books that have put a lot of what we're covering today is in self-help books, but the thing about the alcoholic is we'll read a self-help book and we won't apply any of it. This is an application program, and they make it very, very clear what we are to do. So as I do this, I get the benefits of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I want to say there, I was just listening to a podcast this week, not my podcast, another podcast, a business podcast. And in the business podcast, they basically said, their tagline was, this is business guidance that you can actually apply, because there's a lot of theories and all that kind of stuff out there about stuff. And this is kind of a step-by-step process. And I thought about Alcoholics Anonymous in that, these are spiritual theories and processes that you can actually apply. And it made it kind of simple, stupid, if you will, for this alcoholic at least.
So that's the evening review. It moves us right into, within one paragraph, it moves us right into upon awakening. So I take a lot of this stuff literally, John. A lot of people say, well, when I do my morning meditation, I get up, I have a cup of coffee, then I set aside an hour, and and I've got a quiet chair and a quiet room, and I have nothing against any of that. But this book tells me upon awakening, that means I'm still in bed. I'm waking up, right? It says, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that we be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Now, here's what tripped me up for the longest time, John. I would see meditation, up on the wall, in all the rooms. I would see it up on the wall, and I would buy books on meditation, and there was always meditation classes. And so many of these meditation classes were Eastern based. This book was written in 1939. All right. The Maharishi had not shown up in the United States yet. The Beatles had not moved him over here. We were not being influenced in Eastern meditative practices in 1939. So that stuff has nothing to do with this particular step. Now, if you have Eastern meditative practices, transcendental meditation, all that stuff, I am all for all that. Okay. I just want to point out that this is what the book is telling me. And what this comes from is a form of meditation that they called Christian contemplative practices. It was a contemplative practice. It was not necessarily what we think. We think of meditation as sitting in the lotus position, listening to a Narada CD, with incense burning or something, right? This is different. This is constructive, and it's we review our day. Okay, where am I? I got to go to work. I'm gonna have to. There's a board meeting today. I'm gonna have to prepare for that. Blah 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 blah. It's all very productive. It's all very constructive, what they're asking us to do. Yes, there's prayer involved, and there's quiet time and listening for inner guidance, but it's different than what I thought meditation was, when I showed up here, because I'd been influenced by, all kinds of, I read all kinds of Alan Watts books,
Right.
and stuff. And that just messed me up for being able to apply this 11-step program.
Yeah, I understand. So that's very interesting. I didn't really think of it that way because, like I said, like you said, when I got sober, I went to the library immediately and I started thinking about, I started, pulling out books on meditation and getting candles out and all that kind of good stuff. And it was all Eastern stuff. But I didn't really think about the time when this book was written and what exactly they were talking about. And it's more of like that Christian contemplative meditation, and I know what you're talking about, but basically you just kind of take words or whatever from the book or wherever it is you're taking it from and just, kind of concentrate on that and think about, what does this mean to me and repeat it over and over, right?
So these practices came out of the Oxford group. When this book was being written, the Akron group was still in the Oxford group. New York had kind of been foisted out of it by that time. But what they would do is they would do morning quiet time. And what that would look like is they'd all get together in the morning, and someone would read something, mainly scripture, and then they would get quiet for a period of time, and they would have a pad and a pencil, and they would write down what they considered guided thoughts. So the reading or the passage would inform their thoughts as they got quiet and listened, and then they would jot down things, and then they would share those things after they came out of the quiet time. So that was the Oxford group practice. And Bill saw that as a little too heavy-handed, or whatever, for the alcoholics. So it was changed, in this book. Bill changed some of the things. He applied some of the things he thought everybody else, the other alcoholics, could deal with. He put things in there like, in thinking about the day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. They're trying to they're trying to train our perspective. They're trying to train our behavior with these constructive practices to the point where we're not shooting ourselves in the foot anymore. Don't just do something, John. Stand there. That's what they're asking us to do. You know what I mean? Wait, consider a little bit, before you blow Thanksgiving up again, with the family. You know what I mean?
Hey, have you ever been to any of those, so, and I'm assuming I don't know if they had these in the beginning or not. I know that, like, when I've been to Bill and Dr. Bob's house, they have the Bible out there and what Anne used to read out of for meditation when they all got together and were talking. But have you ever been to any of those meditation meetings that AA has? They're basically just meditation. They're very cool. What's your experience been like with those?
There was an 11-step meeting for a long, long time. It lasted a long, long time in our area, and there would be a long period of meditation where they would just have you meditate. They'd hit the gong. Listen, it goes so against our nature to just quiet down and do nothing. But there's something very, very spiritual and very, very, very contemplative about just you know just calm down. And I've learned to do that. It went against my alcoholic nature. My brain was always racing, and that meant I was always doing some crazy thing, right? So so there's healing in the quiet. God can speak to us through our intuition and our thought system much clearer when we're quiet. And they knew that in the early days. He says we usually conclude our period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, and that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially from freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We're careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. So he's just giving us some guide rails, with our prayers. But each of us has to own this practice. It has to be our own. I don't believe in, like memorizing somebody else's practice. I think he wants us to individualize this, and so that it's ours, and we have a sense of ownership, with this prayer and meditation. I truly believe that.
And Chris, I have
And
in the past, when I've been to meetings about 11-step prayer, sometimes I'm a little bit more confused about exactly where to go when I come out of that because everyone's got a different idea, which is fine. But I will actually go to God and pray to Him and say, hey, will you direct me into the type of meditative practice that you want me to have? Will you direct me into the type of prayer practice that you want me to have? And things will appear, right? They come up, and you just kind of follow. For me, I follow the guidance of that and see where it takes me.
that's beautiful, because those are the type of prayers that get answered. Imagine it like this. Let's say you have a child who's about 13, and he comes up to you one day and he says, Dad, will you help me be a better kid? Would you give me some guidance in how to live this thing called life, and just help me be a better kid? What wouldn't you do for that? That'll never happen, but I mean, what wouldn't you do for that child? You know what I mean? We're asking our Father in heaven. We're asking our Father to help us be better kids. And those are the prayers. Those are the prayers that always get answered. I'm sure of that. The third part of step 11 is as we go through the day. So we start our day off. We finish our day with these disciplines, and I am going to call them disciplines. They're not extra credit, John. I'll get a little extra credit. I'm going to do step 11. No, it's a discipline that, you skip it at your peril, like many of these steps. But anyway, it says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves that we're not running the show, humbly asking ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Many times each day, thy will be done. And what that does is that brings us into the consciousness of the presence of God. If we continue to do that many times each day, saying, thy will, not mine, be done, many times each day, we're bringing ourselves into the consciousness of the presence of God. And this book tells us that that's quite possibly the most important aspect of a recovery, is being in the state where you are conscious of the power, you're conscious of the divine. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I'm gonna say this because I like the way I say it, John. But I was once asked to do a whole talk on spirituality. Chris, we want you to talk for an hour on spirituality. So I did what all of us would do, right? I went to the Google, and I Googled up some spirituality. And do you know, one of the descriptions of spirituality was this. This is the one I like the best. Spirituality is a personal inner pathway to connection with the divine. John, do you know what the 12 steps are? They're a personal inner pathway to connection with the divine. And it's connection with the divine that our soul longs for, especially as alcoholics. There's a liquor store right down the street from me, and it has an old sign. It's called Wine and Spirits. That's what it's called. And when they're talking about spirits, they mean hard liquor. If it's a spirit shop, that means there's hard liquor in there. Now, why do you think they called hard liquor spirits? We longed for the sense of connection and peace that alcohol seemed to provide to us as alcoholics. So our recovery, in a way, must connect us to something like that, because we were longing for that ease and comfort that would come at once after taking a few drinks we see others taking with impunity. It's in the doctor's opinion. So the 12 steps are a personal inner pathway to connection with the divine, which is what our soul has longed for before we even touched alcohol. But it's the alcoholic that needs that connection desperately to be able to survive. If we don't get that connection, we're in serious, serious trouble, because we're all alone. We're in what is known as the bondage of self, the toxic experience of self-consciousness that the alcoholic is prey to. So is step 11 important? you know, uh, I think it is most important.
Yeah.
You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I do. It's not like I think everybody needs that conscious contact with the God of their understanding, whatever it is, to a higher power. I mean, some people would argue that, but I think everybody needs it. But the consequences are greater for me and you if we don't have
Mhm.
that.
Our problem is we've found it, and it's in alcohol, and it backfires on
Mm.
us. You know what I mean? Like we treat our alcoholism with alcohol. That's what we're doing the whole time. Oh, he's trying to kill himself. Look at him. He's killing himself. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. What do you think I'm trying to do? I'm trying to kill
Yeah.
self. And so step 11 brings us into the consciousness of the presence of God.
Yeah.
And it's a very comforting place to be.
That's beautiful. Well, Chris, why don't we kind of put a bow on this one? What do you think
Sure.
for those of out there listening to this? Maybe they've never even heard of Step 11 and what it actually is and what it means. Why don't you kind of wrap it up and talk about your overall feelings of Step 11, what it is, and how people may be able to utilize it?
Here's what I like to say, because I go to so many meetings, and there are a lot of meetings where people are so resistant to the steps that they see that steps as an overreaction. Here's what I'd like to share with you. Let's say you had a really severe illness. Let's say you had stage 4 cancer or something. Would you go to the hospital and hang out in the cafeteria and hang out in the gift shop and talk to people out in the parking lot for like 6 months before you went in to see a doctor and took the cure? Wouldn't that be insane?
That's a good way
You
to
know,
put it.
so we tell you, the first meeting you come to, we tell you what the recovery program is. It's the 12 steps. And we will allow you to languish in the back, year after year, not being held, because we're not going to hold you accountable. These are suggested steps. We're not going to hold you accountable, but you can languish in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for year after year after year, like the person who would go to the hospital and hang out in the coffee area year after year after year and not get the operation. The 12 steps is our operation. And if you have some resistance to these steps, try to find the right guide or the right sponsor or someone who will compassionately move you through these steps and these exercises. And you'll find as you move through them that they are constructive. They are you will gain positive experiences and positive change from them. And step 11 is probably my favorite step because there's so much latitude in it. It tells us to search out additional spiritual materials. Ask some priests, ministers, and rabbis for some suggestions on some books. Go to some retreats, go to some workshops, go, get this book, do that, listen to this podcast. It's saying, feed your spirit. And that's kind of what you and I are doing here today, John. Don't you
Oh,
think?
I agree. Yeah. Even there were times during this where you talked about step 11 and just kind of, pausing. And I would kind of take a deep breath and I was really concentrating on what you were saying. And I would be in the moment. And anything like that that helps me be in the moment, helps me be in the now, helps me to concentrate on others, helps me to concentrate on the God of my understanding, whatever form, fashion, method that I can use to do that, the better off I am.
Absolutely. And so just give this stuff a try. The guy that started the Oxford group, his name was Frank Buchman. He had a practice where he would just make a deal with you to practice some of these spiritual principles for 30 days. And then at the end of 30 days, you'd have a discussion on whether you wished to continue to do it. Was it beneficial to you? And it was a trick that he had with everybody because they all found benefit with it, but they all had preconceived notions that it wasn't going to work and it was stupid and it was silly and it was for other people. So he had that trick. So I would say, please give yourself 30 days to practice everything it says in this step 11 and actually do it as a discipline. And at the end of 30 days, if you haven't had fundamental revelatory change in your life, go do something else. But give this thing a try. Give this thing a try.
That's right. Thank you so much, Chris. All right, we're going to go to page 164 to wrap this up. And page 164 says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. These shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us, like me and Chris S., as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Once again, Chris, thank you so much again. In fact, when we're done here, I want to get you scheduled for some more time for step 12 in the future, okay?
Sounds great. John, I love spending time with you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Likewise. Thank you, Chris. As always, thank you very much, Mr. Chris S. We're going to have him back on for step 12 here sometime in the near future. Now, on to a little bit of listener feedback. By the way, we have quite a bit here. I got to catch up on some listener feedback. I've been laxing. Laxing, is that a word? No, I've been lax. Something like that. Anyway, I've not been very good about it. Put it that way. All right. Frank Z writes in. He says, hey, John M., my sober date is October 9th, 2018. So I just celebrated 7 years a few months ago. Good for you, Frank. Once again, folks, excuse my voice. I'm going to get through this, though. I'm going to power through. Like I used to say when I was a kid, it would have killed a lesser man. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, Frank goes on. I found your podcast about 2 months ago, and I have listened religiously ever since. I live in Brunswick, Georgia, but my job is in Savannah, so I have a 2.5-hour commute every day. There are so many people I've really enjoyed listening to. I just finished up Judith Part 2 yesterday. I love David G., and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember a guy, you called him Muck. What he's saying there. Joe Muck. And then he says, oh, Joe and Charlie tapes are awesome as well. So when I say Joe Muck. I'm talking about his first two initials, MC, like like John M. But he's got one of those. Is not McCormick, but something like that name. I don't know why I call him Joe Muck, but I do. Anyway, he says, he says, anyway, my New Year's resolution is to go through the 12 steps this year. I love the spiritual principles of the program, but have to admit this time around that I haven't been to one meeting in 7 years, and I've been sober this time. I'm not sure what happened to me. I was a complete mess. Let me make sure I got that right. I haven't been to one meeting in the 70s. Yes. I was a complete mess. Maybe the worst I'd ever been. I was a completely functional alcoholic and would drink 3 beers and then 2 bottles of wine every single night. My wife had a baby. And at 6 months, I had a spiritual awakening drunk one night on the couch. I thought to myself, this poor kid doesn't deserve to have a drunk as a father. That was my last drunk and drink 7 years ago. I had tried to quit a million times before and had gotten sober for 2 years twice, but would always go back. Anyway, I don't mean to ramble on. I hope that was a good intro. I really love your podcast and will continue to listen daily. Oh, yeah, the emails. I asked him about. He had this funky looking email. He told me about how it's from his old t-shirt company, but he sold it, and he put a big smiley face. Thanks again, Frank Z. Thanks, Frank Z. I appreciate you writing in, my friend. God bless you. And congratulations on your 7 years. Travis writes in, and Travis says, greetings, fellow trudger. I'm Travis L. from Sequim, Washington. I remember you, Travis, because it looks like that talent should be pronounced Sequim, but you do the phonetic spelling, and that helps people, and I very much appreciate that. Hello to everybody up there in Sequim, Washington. Anyway, he says, I've been saying that I am going to email you again for months now, so here it is. I listen to Sober Speak at work for the first 2 hours before customers arrive. I identify with almost all of the speakers, and only one woman I really didn't care for. I have heard you say that you've had second thoughts about 1 or 2 interviews, and I always wonder if it's the same one. Well, I'm not going to say out loud who that is, but I have had second thoughts about a couple of the interviews. And then he says, anyway, I'm coming up on 4 years in February, and with God in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have them to thank. I have God in the the book says God either is or he isn't. I believe that God is, and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. I got a sponsor who knows they are. Get a sponsor. This is kind of the advice section. Get a sponsor who knows they are your sponsor. Work the steps, go to meetings, sponsor others, and be of maximum service to God and those around me. That sounds like good advice there, sir. I don't know which one of those pieces hold my recovery together, but I'm scared to let any of them go just in case that's the thread that starts the unraveling that makes it all fall apart. I'm so thankful for you and Sober Speak. I used to really look forward to hearing Gerhardt's name in the contribution. It took me a while to figure out what he was spelling out there. CONTRABUSHEON, the contribution. And I'm not sure if that's a typo or not. I'm not sure who Gerhardt is. I am sorry. I just don't remember. But anyway, it says, I haven't heard it in a while and have been praying that he is okay. Well, go ahead and write me again there if you want to, Mr. Travis. I'll try to get, but like I said, I don't recognize that name. I'm wondering if it is a misspell, or it could be, very well could be, a mismemory on my end. Anyway, he says, I haven't heard his name in a while, and I've been praying that he is okay and has just decided to give to his local group instead. In fact, I want to go ahead and say this while we're on this right now. I have told people in the past, if you have the choice between contributing to my silly little podcast and contributing to your local group, I would 100 times over want you to contribute to your local group. That's where the real recovery takes place. Anyway, he says, I'm going to send you a voicemail for your listener feedback jingle because you always talk about how you need one. Well, thank you. I'll look forward to getting that, Travis. I don't think I've received it yet. He says, you may have one already, but I am only on episode 282. I started from the beginning, and I got out of prison in October of 2023. I had listened to many in prison, but I skipped around that time. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for all you do. Travis L. 210 of 22 up there in Sequim, Washington. Thanks for writing in, Travis. Gary writes in, he says, okay, so I told Gary that he does, and I tell this to most of the people that write in, that contribute. It is not expected, but it's always appreciated. And Gary writes in and says, I was just doing my yearly 7th tradition as I work my way through your podcast. I am up to almost episode 300. Your speakers always provide experience, strength, and hope, along with a lot of great nuggets of wisdom that I use and apply in my own sobriety. A little update on me. I just picked up 8 years in November. That's great, Gary. 8 years. Wow. He says, I now teach meditation classes at a local studio twice a month, and on my YouTube channel continues to expand. By the way, if you're looking for his YouTube channel, it's called My Name is Gary B. So look for that on YouTube. My name is Gary B. And he says, I will be trying to get approved on Insight Timer this month. Boy, I hope you do. That's the meditation app that I use, and I'd love for you to be on there, Gary, so I could listen to you there. He says, I have a friend in the program that got approved. Helping me through the process. He says, I have found a new group of people in recovery that my higher power led me to, and they are amazing. It's a regular men's meeting in Tegay, K-C-A-Y, maybe, I don't know, South Carolina, which is about 20 minutes from me, and I started to attend last February. When I went in to sign up to be the meeting chair so I could get to know them better, I was filled through the end of 2025. Good for you. Way to get involved. He says, so I signed up for January 2026, and today was the first time chairing the meeting. One thing that is cool about this group is that it's the second Saturday of the month, and they have you tell your story. So next week, I get to share my story with all of them. These men have welcomed me into their program with open arms and open hearts, and they are really rooted in the program and their recovery, much like you, my friend, Mr. Gary. And a lot of them do personal work on themselves outside the program. That's great. He says, it is like I found a second round of, quote, my people to be in the connections, to be with, and the connections have continued to grow. I continue to work on my fellowship and my recovery, and that is slowly getting easier for me. I still do EMDR, which is, for those of you who don't know, and he wrote it out here, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I knew the EM, but I didn't know that was the DR. It's the DR. Anyway, I still do the EMDR therapy, to work through processing my abuse. While that is going well, this current round of processing is getting quite painful and hard. Good for you working through that, my friend. Good for you. I'm grateful I have so many people around me that I can talk to and get support from. It has been quite a journey to mix the therapy and step work together and letting go of my past and the painful memories associated with it. I have carried this around with me for 30 years and I am now ready to let it go. God bless you, my friend. Healing takes time, and I have remembered that 7 years of abuse will not be healed in a couple of sessions. As always, I appreciate what you do and continue to benefit from your episodes to people that I think, and I continue to send your episodes to people that I think would enjoy and benefit from them. Please tell your wife, the lovely Mrs. M, that I appreciate her service too. I know how much work it is maintaining a website. It surely is. And then he says, have a great day and keep doing what you're doing, John. Gary B. Well, Gary B., thank you for writing in. And we're going to have, I know Gary, he's been on one of our past episodes, and I'm going to get him back on again to talk about what he's got going on there. Thanks, Gary. Phil writes in, and Phil says, hi, John. I lived in Denton, Texas my whole life, 47 years, and I have struggled with addiction and alcoholism since I was young. I just landed a new job working second shift, and Sober Speak has been a great resource for me to use between my regular meetings. My home group is Show Me Group. I know that group. I've been there. And I also go to The Workshop, which is an NA group. Well, thank you, Phil. I'm glad we can keep you entertained and hopefully growing a little spiritually while you're on your why would you say you're doing? You're on the road, right? I lived in Denton, struggle with. Oh yeah, the second shift. I'm sorry. So I'm glad we're you know what I'm saying. I'm glad that you allow us to be a part of your journey. I really do. Rusty writes in, and Rusty comes in via the snail mail, which Mike monitors, and Mike is our snail mail monitor. He keeps up with both the physical mail that comes in on the P.O. box, and he does a lot of emailing with a lot of inmates as well. And he says, Rusty says, hello, John M. Greetings. I just wrapped up episode 428, which is Judith R., which was part 2 from episode 427, which was part 1. Solid story, exhibiting strength and experience and hope. Not only a former wild woman, but also a very wild attorney, smiley face. And he says, alcoholism does not discriminate. What a wonderful ending after she was forced on an old biker mechanic sponsor who treated her as a fellow alkie in need of a swift kick to the backside. I take my proverbial hat off to him for helping Judith become who she is today. Remarried to hubby number 2, good sobriety under her belt, and sitting chief justice over an Indian tribunal court. Wow. Please send my best regards to her. Lastly, at the end of episode 428, I received much glee with the shout outs given by Jason. Oh yeah, Jason, I remember that. He's made a wonderful addition to the group. We who still reside with our gated community called a level 6 maximum security prison are in sore need of such living examples like Jason. Don S. and Ed also accompanied Jason to join in our Monday afternoon meetings. Well, if you're listening to this, Don S. and Ed and Jason, thank you for your service. It works only if you work it. What you get is what you give. Until next time, hasta la vista, mi amigo, and me fellow AA brother from another mother. Happy New Year 2026, Unity, Service, Recovery, Rusty R. on the Rockin' Robertson in Abilene, Texas. So, and then I also, okay, I want to read a couple different things here. Number one is what Mike wrote. Mike's the gentleman who monitors these emails. And he said, also, Rusty asked for me to write a support letter for him to the parole board. I was wondering if you would like to write one as well and possibly announce it on the podcast for anyone else that may want to do such. He says he could use all the help he can get after 30 years flat. His parole hearing is on February 20th. Ooh, so we're going to be cutting it close. So that's not much time to get letters out. But here's the information if you choose to do it. So as opposed to going through the information, all I would say is if you want to, write me at John, John, at soberspeak.com, and I will get you in touch with Mike, or I'll just send you the address myself, and then you can write in for Rusty's parole. If you're used to hearing about him on this podcast and you want to write something for him, that'd be absolutely fantastic. I plan on doing it myself. And then, so what I did is I took that email and I copied it to Judith, who was talked about on the email. And Judith responds to Rusty and she says, Rusty, I was genuinely moved by your message. Thanks for taking time to write and for the care you put into your words. I do not take lightly the effort that it takes to sit down and write a thoughtful letter, especially in the environment you are living in. What stands out most to me is not what you said about me, but the recovery you are clearly living where you are. Working an honest program of Alcoholics Anonymous inside a maximum security prison takes incredible courage, humility, and extraordinary willingness. That kind of recovery is not theoretical. It is earned one day at a time and often without comfort, privacy, or encouragement. You are an inspiration to me, truly. Anyone who practices unity, service, and recovery behind the walls understands the heart of this program in a way few ever will. Your example reminds me that sobriety is not about location, freedom, or circumstances. It is about surrender, discipline, accountability, and daily action wherever we are planted. I am deeply grateful to know that the meetings are happening where you are and that men are showing up for one another. That kind of service saves lives even when it is unseen. Please know that your recovery and your example reach far beyond the place you are housed. You are part of something much larger than any set of walls. Thank you for carrying the message with integrity and humility. Thank you for doing the work, and thank you for reminding me that this program works wherever it is honestly practiced one day at a time, Judith. Well, first of all, let me say, Rusty, Mike, Judith, thanks all of you for writing in. I appreciate it. I wish I could put into words like Judith does what I am thinking. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I think Mike is going to send that letter into Rusty's parole board as well. So anyway, God bless you all. Thank you very much. I'm just a middleman here. I'm just a middleman. Bill writes in and he says, and the subject is AA sponsor. And Bill says, my son, Joel R., is in custody in Denver, Colorado. He is in need of a sponsor and was wondering if you could help point him in the right direction. He will be in for years this time and needs some guidance on how to get away from this addiction of alcohol. He was listening to both Dave F., from Flower Mound, and it touched him a story. If you would like to or could give a call back or email me back, Bill R., and he gave his number. And what I did is I copied Mike on that. And Mike's going to be getting in touch with his son and seeing if he can help him out. And anyway, Bill, thank you so much for writing in. Me and the family members, I just think about them so much and what they have to deal with people like me. And anyway, I'm glad you're there for your son. And if you happen to hear this, Joel, up in Colorado, keep the faith, my friend. We're here for you. Eric posts on social media. He says, hey, I'm a fellow member from Perth, Western Australia, listening in while walking before going to bed. Eric, good to hear from you, mate. We love you. We love all you folks out in Australia. All right, so sorry, I just had to catch up on a lot of listener feedback. I'm not sorry, but there was just a lot of listener feedback there. Hopefully that was enjoyable for you. I do want to give that P.O. box out one more time that Mike monitors for those who either can't email in or they choose. They just like writing physical letters. Mike is there, and write it to this address. It's SoberSpeak, 1962 East Apache Boulevard, P.O. Box 7925, Tempe, Arizona 85281. I'm so glad that my voice lasted. Man, that was kind of tough today. All right. So what do I usually say? Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. I hope to be back next week. Until then, may God bless you and keep you until then. Love you guys. Thanks so much for listening in. As I always say, I know there's so many things you could be doing with your time. And the fact that you the fact that you come here and spend time with me and my guest just means the world to me. God bless you. Prayers to all of you. Love you. Have a good rest of your week.